A Yid once came to the Rav Shetzirav, and he wanted to go in to speak to the Rebbe. So the Rav Shetzirav's son, the Belezer of Jikov, said, that he's in charge. He's the Gabbai and decides who's going into his father at which times. And that there are designated times you can go into the rabbi to consult with him and ask for his advice. And right now is not the time. So he said, but I'm a very chashuv person. Chashuv people don't have to wait for times, right? Especially Jews don't like waiting for schedules. We like to do things differently. Although I'll never forget, one of my babies was born up in in a small, we were away for the summer someplace. And there was this tiny little hospital there. And we went in. It was a very pleasant experience. But I remember I came with my mother, Oleo Hashalom, and there was a nice receptionist. And it was a sign. Now listen to this. The sign said, visiting hours and in the maternity ward is from 6 to 8. Or 6 to 7, something like that. And then it said, grandmothers from 7 to 8. Right? Something like that. So or maybe it was, 6 to 8. Grandma was another hour anyway. So she's okay, sure. She starts walking us to the door, and she says to my mother, "Who are you?" She says, "I'm the grandmother." She goes, "Oh no, you have to wait till 8 o'clock because it says grandmothers from whatever 8 to 9. You can't go now." So it really doesn't make sense that grandmother shouldn't be allowed in during the regular visiting hours. I'm sorry, this isn't New York, she said. That's like a famous. We do things right. Get someone to explain that. Over there? Okay. That, and I remember the same day I went to buy something for the baby in the gift shop downstairs, and I had the same comment. I said, "Sir, you didn't sign your credit card." And she's thinking, "This is New York. I don't know what they think New York is." That was a reference. "You have to sign credit cards here." So I signed the credit card. Well, now she knows it's mine. Right? Then she prints out the receipt. She says that she signed the receipt. Signed the receipt. And she goes, wait. She has to check to see if it's the same signature. She looks to see if it's the same thing. All right. So in any event, but that's how Jews are. Sometimes they, let's not get into that. We don't want to be McCatrick over here. So he said, no, I go into the Rebbe now. Who are you? You're not going into the Rebbe now. It's not the hours. Thank you, Yosef. It's not the hours to go into the Rebbe now. You're not going in now. No, I go in now. You're not going in now. All right. Finally, he says, I'm thirsty. Can you get me a glass of water? So, Lezel Jacobus, of course, Yid wants a glass of water. So he comes out with a glass of water. He's about to give it to him. This is my tea, by the way, for those who aren't watching this. This is not the person's glass of water. In any event, so...
12 gun roses, not only one.
Yeah. And he's about to take the glass, and the man stops. Okay, the guest stops. He says, I can't drink from this glass. And Rabbi Lezer Jikova, the Rav Shetzirav's son, says, why can't you drink from the glass? He says, this glass was not toiveled. It has to be immersed in the mikveh, and I cannot drink it. He says, what are you talking about? The glass is toiveled. No. You can see on the glass after it's toiveled, it has the Shem Havaya, and this glass was not toiveled. So, just to humor himself, he goes in and he asks his family, the glass was toiveled, right? And they said, where'd you take the glass from? And he says, no, from that in that corner. No, there were glasses there that are waiting to be toiveled. They weren't toiveled yet. Guys about Ruach HaKodesh. So he walked out. He said, I'm sorry. I hadn't realized who you are. You're a person that can see on a glass that it wasn't toiveled yet. So he took him into his father right away. When he walked out, so his father asked, why'd you let him in? So his father said, he reached the ultimate level. He must be the ultimate tzaddik. He was able to look at the glass and say, this wasn't toiveled. He said, halavai, I should one day be on that madrega. I could look at a glass and say, no Shem Havaya. It wasn't toiveled. So the Rebbe said, I just hope and pray that if one day you reach the level where you go to someone's house, and he shows you a glass, and you see it wasn't toiveled, then you're not going to say it wasn't toiveled. You'll just say, I'm not thirsty now. Who's this guy showing off what he sees, a Shem Havaya or not? That's not the ultimate level. The ultimate level would have been, I know it wasn't toiveled. You know what? I'm not thirsty. That would have been the ultimate level. So, the level of being able to look at a glass and we should be able to see whether it was toiveled or not, I don't know how many of us could reach. Okay, Yankel, I don't mean you, but I mean...
speak for yourself.
Right, I speak for myself, right? I knew that. See, I was scared, right?
You say Jacob, then I can...
Jacob. Say Jacob?
Say Jacob.
Okay.
Say Jacob.
So Jacob.
He won the Jeopardy contest.
Oh, okay, fine.
You did.
Fine.
Jewish.
But most of us cannot reach that level of being able to see a glass, whether it has the Shem Havai or not. But this second glass, when you have that opportunity in life of showing off who you are, and you say, you know what, it's not necessary, really. Instead of saying, that's a level that we could reach. And according to the Rabbi Tzarav, that's a much higher level. I once heard a story of someone on his deathbed who was, he said, they gathered around to say vidui, and he leaned over to one of his children, and in his last breath, he whispered and said that really, the tzaddikim, they would say Shema Yisrael, they would make a shahakal, and they would pass away. He doesn't want to do that, because then he would look like a Bal Gaiva. So he's willing to forego on that. People shouldn't talk about that. So they told the Yismach Yisrael, they said they never heard such a Bal Gaiva in his life. So why did he have to say that? If he wanted to forego, he should have just not done it, right? So he had to go and say, not only am I the kind of person that says a shahakal, I'm even a bigger tzaddik, I'm even a hanav that won't even let everyone do it, so why is he telling everyone? I've told you many times the story of the man that came to the Balatanya and said that he has a big Achnasis Archim house. The Rebbe said, if you're doing a great thing, he started crying. He says, Rebbe, I don't mean it l'shem shemayim. Rebbe said, don't worry. As we've said many times over here, I heard it from my father, the people that eat l'shem shemayim, it's okay. He said, no, Rebbe, but I feel bad, I don't mean it l'shem shemayim. It's okay. Because, Rebbe, you know something? Even this that I'm bemoaning, I don't mean it l'shem shemayim, even that I don't mean l'shem shemayim. It's like also shtick, I don't mean l'shem shemayim. And then he said, even this that I'm saying, that what I'm saying, that I don't mean l'shem shemayim, is also not l'shem shemayim. And he goes, and even that I'm saying, he kept going till he fainted. And the Balatanya said he was zeicha to a darg of l'shem shemayim. In other words, he recognized, who we are, who are we kidding? But he recognized he has a way to go, and at least he has something to strive for, something to shoot for. I had this experience today, and I'll tell you what I want to bring out with this. Be'ez Hashem, which is Negei L'Maisa. I was on the phone with ordering something. And the agent says, okay, so he's reading the order. If at any point you'd like to speak to a representative, just say representative. So they start hacking a chinik, and I say representative. And he goes, in that electronic voice, excuse me, what? Representative. Can you repeat that, please? Representative. Did you say repeat? No, you said repeat. I said representative. I'm having a hard time understanding you. Oh, well, me, I'm the problem. You know what? The electronic voice says, I'll get a representative on the line. Shkayach. So I said, a lot of things in life are that way. We reach a certain level, but we don't reach it the way we think we're going to reach it. And I want to share with you a story that a fellow told me, because I think it's a great story. It's not very exotic or very exciting, but I think it's very real. This friend of mine told me that he has a investment in a certain bank. He started out with a certain bank, and that bank was sold to a different bank, and that bank collapsed, and the FDIC took it over, and they sold it to a different bank, and they played telephone over here. The bank went to bank to bank to bank to bank, and finally a big bank took it over, and now has this investment in the big bank. So he goes to the big bank, and there's a new representative. I'm just picking a name out of the hat. I don't know, Mr. Jones, whatever. Not his real name. And he says, I'm the new representative. He says, great. He says, I would suggest that you sell all of your stocks that were ordered years ago. It's not the right mix, not the right investment, and we're going to repurchase everything into the company of this bank, which is of course a much better company because it's this bank, So he says, he studies it a little bit. He says to Mr. Jones, I would do it, but I have one problem. He says, what's your problem? He says, I had this once before. I'm not a big accountant over here, so I don't know if I know what I'm talking about. But he said, if you sell whatever it was, he was selling $200,000 worth of stock, I don't know, $100,000. He says, then you have to show whether it was a gain or a loss. And in reality, it would have been somewhat of a loss. But he has to have the cost basis to be able to show the IRS that it's a loss. He says, and I know you're not going to have the cost basis because it went from brokerage house to brokerage house. And you probably don't even have the original information. So I really don't want to get involved in this. I don't want any sales under the circumstances. Let me wait a little longer, until things work themselves out. Well, you'll never sell the stock? I don't know. I'll live off the dividends. I don't know if I want to sell it. Mr. Jones says, to my friend, he says, whatever, Mr. Rosenberg, I guarantee you that as long as I am in this position, I will enter and research and make sure you don't have a single problem. You will have all the information. You will have the cost basis. Okay? You know what's coming, right?
Okay. That he said that.
Yeah. Anyway,
Plastic man.
so, here comes the 1099s. When you start getting them, I don't know, February time, March time. And he gets the cost basis, and he gets the 1099 that he sold X amount of stock, a significant amount of money. And it says, cost basis unknown. Like his biggest nightmare. And now it says the burden of proof is on him to show that it was a loss. So he runs to the bank, and the bank says, oh, we're sorry. He said, no, your representative, Mr. Jones, said as long as he's working in this bank, he will get me the cost basis. Oh, Mr. Jones was fired 3 weeks ago. He's right, as long as he's working in this bank, and he's not working in this bank anymore. So now the guy, he says, I met him that morning, I had this once before, it is a nightmare, I'm going to wind up paying taxes that I don't owe. He's all like, so he said, he's pacing back and forth. I said to him, why don't you speak to Rabbi Shalom? There's no bracha in Shmona Esrei about cost basis, all right? There's a bracha of Haser Minenu Yogain V'Anacha, take away my daigas. There's a bracha of Rifeinu, looks like you're in serious trouble if you don't get your cost basis. There's a bracha of Baruch Aleinu, Parnasa, and then there's the bracha of Shema Kaleinu. And then you can talk to Hashem about whatever you want. You think Hashem is interested in my cost basis? I think that Hashem knows every Agnes Nefesh in your life. And every frustration in your life. He's the one that arranges it. He does? Yeah, because it directs you. Okay? So speak to him. Yeah. And you think God is I'm gonna look up, and the Malach Gavriel will come down with a stack of papers and put it out in front of me. Malach Gavriel could just email it to you. What does he have to come down with a stack of papers? What's in it? Okay. I don't know, maybe they don't let you use the internet up there. Okay, so come down with a stack of papers. I'm not getting involved in that. Alright. Now, he said that sarcastically. I said, listen, I don't tell God how to do things. He knows how to do it. Okay? And I see this guy's davening Shmoneh Esrei, and I see he's like serious. He's serious. So I'm curious to know what happened. So I call him up a while later, and I say, whatever happened with your cost base? He says, you're not going to believe this. He said, one of the things I said to Hashem is, I said, I'm going to have to go into Erev Pesach worrying about this. Erev Pesach in the morning, he gets a call from his school. Okay? Not exactly. He works with the Board of Ed, and somehow he has to do fingerprinting, and either it wasn't done or the files got mixed up. He has to redo it. So, goes down to the office, and they call before, and he says, we'll make sure you get the papers that you need. A bunch of papers that he needs, and one of the papers that he needs is a high school diploma. So he tells me, high school diploma? I don't have my high school diploma. I don't know where it is. It goes back how many years ago? You got to have a high school diploma. And he is wrecking his brisses. Erev Pesach, I'll do it after Pesach. You're going to miss the deadline. You got to do it Erev Pesach. He says, okay, next Shmoneh Esrei, give me my high school diploma. What? So he's racking his brains, and he remembers that he had an uncle that had a safe deposit box in a bank. He didn't have any kids, and they used to keep papers there in his safe deposit. Maybe it's there. So he drives out to some far-out bank, which happens to be also purchased by this same bank, main bank, and still with the safe deposit box, and he shows them the court papers that he's entitled to the safe. He has the key, and we have the back and forth, but it wasn't simple because the box wasn't under his name, but he had all the legal papers to show he was the legal heir, and he had rights to the box, and back and forth, and the man downstairs, he's calling his supervisor, calling the legal department, they check the papers, they fax it in, we can open the box for you. He opens the box, and he finds his high school diploma. As he walks out, the manager of the safe deposit guy, there's a certain type of people that do safe deposit box. They have like a certain, they sit, you sit down in the basement all these years, like opening safes. So the manager, he says to him, do me a favor. He says, can you go upstairs to the manager of the bank and tell him, I spent a lot of time and I was very helpful. So he walks up, it's Erev Pesach, he's late, but he figures the guy did him a toiv, it was taka very nice to him, he should do it. So he walks upstairs and he meets the manager of this bank. He says, I want to tell you, Mr. So-and-so was very, very nice to me, and he took a lot of time. He says, I'm happy to hear that. He says, anything else I can help you with? He says, no. No, really, you want to open up a deposit in this bank? It's, we're here to serve you. I know you're here to serve me. He says, first of all, I don't live in this neighborhood. And second of all, I have nothing to do with this bank. He says, why not? So he tells him the whole story of Mr. Jones. So the guy says, what? He says, come over here. And he follows him to a back office, and he has a secretary over there that looks like she's a Schwiger from Schwigerland, a real mother-in-law type. He says, you get him his cost basis. The said, nobody can get it. She'll get it. And he tells her the whole story, and she goes, chutzpah. And she picks up the phone, and she speaks to the front office, and she starts, I want that cost basis now! I want it now! He walks out with all the transcripts from his thing. They had it sent right there. She said, I'm not putting the phone down. I want that as my customer at this bank. So he comes to me the next day. He goes, I went there for my high school diploma for this, for that. There's no shaykh. It's like, I don't even know how this happened. Why should the guy be interested? It's not even his branch. She says, how did God do this? How did he know where to... He knows. He knows how to do it. But I think his question was that did God have time for cost basis? God has time for us because he writes our itinerary. Our itinerary of the day, the ups and downs of the day, the agmas nefesh of the day, our attitude, how we take to the ups and downs. All of that is hashgacha nifla, that shows us where to go. It's not a question whether God has time for us. He's the one that creates us. I told you this story, I think, several times. That I am, with directions, I don't know, lost. And I don't need a GPS. I just use my sense of direction. Wherever I think to go, I go the other way, and sometimes it works. So a friend of mine, I'm driving him to the airport, and he says, you're driving me to the airport? I thought someone else is driving me to the airport. One of my kids says, no, I'm driving. What's the problem? He goes, I have to make the flight. He says, you'll make the flight. So I was so embarrassed that I checked 1,000 times to make sure, study the map, the terminal B, I was going to be the, and sure enough, I'm chazering these instructions 101 times, and I'm showing him, and I'm saying, Rabbi Hashem, don't embarrass me. And we pull up in front of the terminal, right terminal on time. He gets out, he takes out a suitcase, and I tell him I'm going to park, and I'll come up and be with him. He gives me this look yeah, you're going to go park and find the terminal again. Yeah. I'm I'm going to park and come back. Yeah. So I'm driving, and I'm like, please, I don't want to be embarrassed. So there's this sign, and the sign says, it says airport parking, terminal B. Okay. And then it says entrance and exit. Now, if you ask me, I don't know. That means entrance to parking lot and exit to parking lot. Because it was right after the sign that says, no. That's not what it means. It means entrance to airport and exit to airport. It's right next to the sign that says parking. Teiku, kasha. Okay. I don't know. I think if you learn Gemara, airport signs are not for you. Because it it has to stem, right? So there's a guy told me that he worked once for the Israeli council or the Israeli embassy in Washington. He said he came, and he was, he was a soldier, whatever. He wanted to make some extra money, so he would be armed, and he would walk with Israeli diplomats. So they told him, he asked him his history. He says, he started out learning in the yeshiva. They said, you learned Gemara? He says, yeah. He says, no, you can't have the job. What kind of, racist thing is this guy? I learned Chayim, I can't have the job. What are you scared of? I'm going to send the lady ambassadors to the back of the car. What are you scared of? What are you worried about? No, you can't, he says. Anyway, finally he goes screaming, complaining. They take him into the course. So the guy says in the course, the guy's masbel like this. He says, when you're in a diplomatic car with diplomatic plates, the inside of the car has a din of that country, just like the embassy does. And the outside of the car, so you can carry whatever guns. That's what he said. I don't carry guns. I'm just saying what this guy said. I don't know what's true or not, but this is what he said. He said you can carry the gun, and whatever gun you want, inside the car, because that has the halacha of your country. But outside the car, you can't. So this guy picks up his hand and goes, well, what's the din if you shoot from inside the car to the outside of the car? They said, I told you if you learn Gemara, you can't be in this course. Out! That's it. I don't know. Rabbi Bakari busted Tavramonas, busted Mikaras. I don't know. Okay. He didn't shoot. No, they didn't shoot no one. He Baruch Hashem, he never shot anybody anyway. So that was that. Okay. So Al Kopanim. So I don't know. So here it goes. It says entrance to parking lot, exit to parking lot. So I thought for sure that the exit means. Anyway, sure enough, I wind up outside of the airport, and I'm like, this guy's going to have a field day. So I quickly, please, and I come around, and I wind up coming around back in front of the terminal. Okay? So I figure I will proceed then to the parking lot, knowing now that the entrance and exit sign have no shaykhus to parking. And as I'm coming around, I'm pulling up in front of the terminal, and also he's running out. He's standing on the platform, desperate. Goes, what's the matter? He goes, I left my second suitcase in the car. Quick, take it out. He takes it out. He turns around and goes, how did you know to come back? I know these things. No, really? How did you know? And as I'm parking, and I'm walking up and I'm there on time, and he says, but how did you know? I don't understand. Like, it's Ruach HaKodesh. We don't reveal these things, You saw I was there, right, with the other suitcase, Okay. So Pshat is, I feel like saying, Rabbi Shalom, how do you have time for this? But every aspect of our emotion, every aspect of our Metzias is the Rabbi Shalom. Now there's a Yesod that the Svarim HaKadoshim say when it comes to Tefillah. And I want to break it down. I think it's important to remember. Eitzah number one when it comes to davening is, don't give the Rabbi Shalom eitzos. Don't give God advice. Famous story of the Ben Yada, we've mentioned it many times. The mashal he brings, the guy's walking in the desert. He says, God, if only I had a donkey. Rabbi Shalom, it's so hard, if only I had a donkey. Why can't you give, and he begins to declare, if God wanted to give him a donkey, could have given him a donkey. And all of a sudden this, guy, this highway robber pulls up, he says, my donkey just gave birth to a baby donkey, and he puts it on the Yid's back, and he says, carry it for me. He says, okay, God, I got the idea, you can get me a donkey. Don't give the Rabbi Shalom eitzos. The Rabbi Shalom help me. How you help me? You know how to do that better than I do. Number two, to be real, not to fool yourself. Not to fool yourself. To be real with myself, to be real with people around me. What did it say? There was a Rav, he went over to someone and said, you weren't here a couple of Shabbos and everything okay? The guy says, I had a terrible stomach operation. I was in the hospital a couple of weeks ago. So, Baruch Hashem. What do you mean, Baruch Hashem? So I thought you went to daven someplace else. Okay, but as long as it was only that, I'm not saying you have to be 100% honest all the time with people. But there should be a real feel, a real care for people. And when we daven to Hashem, the point is that we don't try to be a hero. We try to do what's right. Rav Shustel, Zechut Tzadik Levracha, I heard that he was very reluctant to accept Siddur Kiddushin. Everyone likes to be a Masad Kiddushin. That's the biggest covet by the wedding. But because the Gemara says, Kol she'eni yideya b'tiv gittin v'kiddushin, if you don't know all the halachas of gittin and kiddushin thoroughly, al yiyesek imon. And before he would accept the Siddur Kiddushin, he would spend an entire week learning Hilchas Kiddushin, Hilchas Gittin. So he said, he couldn't just accept it. It took a whole week. Until later, in his later years, they said, somebody else will take the achrayus. You'd make the bracha, somebody will be there that knows the halachas, they'll take the achrayus, one of his great children, that speaks volumes about a person. It's the dream of every, I don't want to say, Rosh Hashiva, Sada Kedushin, right? This shows the emes, how Kadosh Baruch Hu craves emes. You ever notice by a chuppah, all the people that get kibbudim usually stand in the back. Like, oh, me? They're calling me? Really? You walk all the way through. Like, that's, somebody once said, I've said this many times, I heard this from my friend Yonis Schwartz, he said, he says, it's all mixed up. He says, under the chuppah we have only 7 brachas, and if you take out the Bari Priya Gafen, there's only 6. There's so many al-chaitz. He said, we could only give out the al-chaitz under the chuppah, and say the brachas, yam neiram, things will be so much easier. He says, imagine, you call up al-chait, you have enough kibudim for everybody out there, right? You call up, so-and-so Rebbe mechubed with al-chait of Michael B'Mishnah. Come, you come up here, where we were. I'll never forget, by one of my weddings, it was a Sheva Brachas, and in walked this cousin, an older cousin. Oh no. Like I had all the Sheva Brachas worked out, and he walked in, and I said, Rabbi Shalom, help. I said, what are you asking Rabbi Shalom for help? I said, there are 7 brachas, and you have 8 people here that are going to be very upset. They're big Bali B'tachim, they all have B'tachim, they're going to get a bracha, you know what I mean? So I said, Rabbi Shalom could always help. Anyway, I don't know what to do. So finally, after by one bracha, they just finished Sameach T'Samach, and I gave over the kais to the next person, and he asked me, I misunderstood, he asked me which bracha they up to. So I didn't remember by heart what the next bracha was. So I told him, we just finished Sameach T'Samach. But he misunderstood me, he thought they were up to Sameach T'Samach. So he repeated Sameach T'Samach. No one noticed, by the way. And, but I very conveniently, even though the bracha levatol is not something to laugh at, but I very conveniently had an 8th bracha. You see, because they repeated one bracha twice. And no one even noticed. Till the next day, a friend of mine called me up, he said, how did you do that? Can't reveal everything, I told you that already, I can't reveal everything. Except that you dive into the Bayri Olam, the Rabbi Shalom has a thing. Now, this doesn't mean that a person shouldn't have self-respect in his life. You have to make a fool out of yourself. But that quest for kavod is the opposite of sheker. And when you dive into a Kadosh Baruch Hu, a tremendous skula that tefillah should be answered. Just be real. Be real. And I once read a story, for the sake of one of the famous Bali Musar, that his wife used to yell at him on the street, scream at him all over the place, mamish mevaza him. And he said, it's as a Isharah in a right Gehenim. And when he was nifter, she got up at a levaya and she apologized and said that her husband asked her to do this. He should have a kapara. And then I heard the story again about someone else. I said about that someone else, I said, this lady, either the husband asked her or something tells me she's just a very clever lady, She came up with this story at the end. The thing that we ought to daven for is not to be the hero, and not, because if you daven to be the hero, so-and-so is sick. So God, make him sicker so I can save him, Push him off the roof so I can be there to catch him. That's not a valid tefillah, obviously. So if we only change the attitude of our tefillah, Rabbi Shalom, I'm asking for menuchas hanefesh. I'm asking that if it is within my role, if this is my shlichus to help someone, I should be there to help him. And Rabbi Shalom, if it's not b'sher to me to have menuchas hanefesh, then I plead with you and I ask you, transfer my lack of menuchas hanefesh to a difficult taisvis, to it's hard for me to get up in the morning, to Schachter, and I rip myself out of bed. And there's a certain amount of akmas nefesh I have to go through. So transfer it to Torah and mitzvahs, to speaking to someone, on the phone late at night or whatever it is that needs a chesed, or going the extra mile to help someone. Can you transfer the Yegiyah Kol HaMakabel of Al Torah Mavirim Menu Al Malchus Vi Al Derech Eretz? The Rav Shitzarav, he had a minig. He would stand by his Rebbe, the Heilige Chayz of Lublin, and he would keep his hand by the door. And the way it worked is, he looked at you and he was able to measure your level of humility. And if a person was a real Bal Gaiva, he kept his hand very low. And the guy had to really crawl underneath. That humbled him before he came in. If he wasn't such a Bal Gaiva, if the guy was a tzaddik and onav, he kept his hand up high, he went right through. We've said this before from the Yisadu Avoid. He said between Gehenna and Gan Eden, there is a little door, and it's open, it's not locked. So why doesn't everyone from Gehenna just go into Gan Eden? So he said, it's a little door. In order to get out, you have to bend down. So what's the problem? They said, if you weren't willing to bend down in this world, then you don't know how to bend down in Yenavel. And you can't do it up there. If you're willing to be machni yourself down here, then you have a way out. So in any event, along comes a person, and the Rav Shitzarav feels he's a very humble person, he lets him in, and he hears he's a Lamed Vav Tzaddik, and he lives up in a churva, in a ruin, a destroyed house on the other side of town. He's making a Shalom Zacher, and he would like a minyan for the Shalom Zacher. So the Rav Shitzarav calls in, is summoned by the Chayz. He says, make sure there's a minyan for his Shalom Zacher. So Friday night they check out, I guess it's in the Tchum Shabbos, and they walk, and it's a tough walk across a field and over a mountain, and in the middle there's a tornado, gale force wind, and it's blowing, and they can't even breathe, and they have to turn around and run back, and the Rav Shitzarav gets up there and he yells, wind, wind! Ah, chutzpah, you have wind! We're being meiser nevish ourselves to go to this tzaddik Shalom Zacher. How dare you stop us? And presto, the wind is gone. And they continue going. And there, it was a difficult Shabbos for the people because there was a terrible epidemic amongst the animals that started the next morning. Animals started dying, and they were machazik them, and they came back. And the Rav Shitzarav came back, and he saw that the Chayza was extremely displeased with him. So, Rebbe, what did I do wrong? And the Rebbe said to him, who were you to yell at the wind? He said, Rebbe, but the wind prevented us from going where we went. And the Rebbe said, the wind also was there to blow away this infection from the animals that should have never been there. Who are you to yell at the wind? You have to turn around, turn around. You said to Hashem, get us there, somehow, even with the wind. Don't tell God to take away the wind. Who are you to tell him what to do? In a world where we have total control, or we think we have total control, we're in trouble. I read a very interesting suggestion by a certain scientist. And he asked why in certain areas of science, cures for certain machlas, it seems like, we want that major breakthrough and the Eibishter will help and it should come quickly, but it's not happening. So he suggested one of the reasons there's no major breakthrough in terms of previous generations, given the information they had, that they came up with the vaccine for polio, and they came up with penicillin, they came up with, they were working with a horse and buggy. They were working like in the Ice Age, and they came up with these tremendous discoveries in science compared to what we have. We should have long cured all the diseases of the world. So this guy, Tainas, and it's an ominous thought, and I think it applies to everything. He says, you know what the problem is today with research and scientists? Too much information. He says, the ones that found the polio and the cured polio and penicillin, they did it by accident. They had limited information. And they tried this and they tried that, and they guessed, and they knew at one point, I don't know what I'm doing, but let me try. He says, we don't try because we know everything. Because you Google everything. Everything is there. So because we know everything, we don't try. Because there's no point in trying. That's not going to work. So Mamela, we don't have the cure. But I think it's an extremely important thing to apply for ourselves. We're so scared of the unknown. We're so unnerved when we come to a situation in life that we don't know what tomorrow is going to be. Because we're so used to having information. But it's just the opposite. It's those moments that we don't know where the wind is blowing. It's dangerous if you can send the wind away. You don't know why the wind is there. I read someplace a story about a girl that was sick. It came time to get married, so they started reading her shidduchim. So they had to read her a shidduch that was, obviously there was a physical problem with the boy also. And the girl started crying, because I'm sick, I have to take that problem. And she writes, I forgot where I read it, but it was her father said to her something so beautiful. He said to her, imagine you have a puzzle. You like doing puzzles? Yeah. What is the easiest parts of the puzzles to do? She says the end parts, because they're round, it goes in the corner. He says, anyone that goes into shidduchim is going into the land of the unknown. A healthy girl goes into the land of the unknown. And you have so many boys, you don't know who's right, who's wrong, who you're going to be happy with, who not. Here, your choice is so limited. So God is doing it for you. It's the easiest piece to fit in. You should be more happy than anyone else. I heard from this kid said he became bar mitzvah. He said he knew nothing. They taught him what's going to be by the Sefer Torah. He never saw Sefer Torah before, but he memorized the brachas. And so he told me, he said, Baruch Hashem HaMvayrach. And everyone else yelled back, Baruch Hashem HaMvayrach Le'el Levad. He turned around and he goes, I don't need any help. I don't need any help. Baruch Hashem HaMvayrach Le'el Levad. I don't need any help. We don't like taking help today. We're all in control. We have all the information at our fingertips. But our role in life is sometimes to give, sometimes to receive, and sometimes to direct. There's God's wind. And we don't have to understand the wind. Don't chase the wind away. Learn how to deal with the wind. I heard a great story today. A man told me that he gives a shiur in Sefer Ahavas Chesed. He has to travel to the shiur. There was a shayla with a chalamayit, he should go to the shiur. He said he's taking a break, he's not going to the shiur. And he has a fellow that drives him to the shiur. It's an older person that lives on his block. He says, a person, a big white beard, like a bushy hair, whatever it is. He's his driver, he drives for a living. So whatever it is, he says, they're by the Seder, and he sends his einikel to open up the door by Shvay Chamascha. And his einikel opens up the door by Shvay Chamascha, and this guy's there. They didn't remember it was him. And not only that, like his einikel shrieks, and the rest of his family, they don't know he's the driver. And for whatever he was wearing, like a white suit for whatever reason to help things along. They open up the door and, wah! And he goes, don't worry, I'm not taking you now. And that really frightened the living daylights out of them. So he ran to the door and he was fainting. He says, oh, you. He says, I don't mean to scare anyone. So he decided Hashem is telling him to go to the shiur. You know what I mean? Enough, he's giving him the message. He says he went to the shiur, it was the most geschmack shiur. The most people showed up there ever. Now, I'm not saying we can read into everything that happens in our life because we don't always know how to interpret it. But there's a certain sense of an understanding that every agmas nefesh, every frustration is hashgacha min hashemayim. The Welt says of art, Rabbi Salanter says, you make a shahakal. A shahakal includes everything. We said before that with tzaddikim, before their petira, they made a shahakal. The shahakal means shahakal niya bidvarai. Everything that exists, the Rabbi Hashem is with your word. You are everything. So he says, so why do we make a shahakal when you eat a piece of licorice or whatever? Brach, you make a licorice, but you eat a tea, you make a shahakal. So Rabbi Salanter gives a mashal. He says, you go into a fancy restaurant, you buy a Coke. He doesn't use the word Coke in his mashal, but the point is that you get the idea, they charge you $5. $5 for a Coke? He says, listen, you're paying for the ambiance. You're paying for the fancy, lights and chairs and the guard and the carpets and he says, we can't charge you for your breath. So we charge you. When it comes to the soda, we charge you for the soda. Comes to the soda, we charge you then. Battery one. So, comes to the soda, so we charge you for the soda. Okay? But, but really, we're charging you for the whole. He says a shahakal is just an excuse. It's an excuse we have to say to Hashem, anything is in. So what does it say when it comes to a l'chaim? You're tzebrachim, to even sit down, a yard site, you're emotional, you drink a l'chaim. When you drink a glass of schnapps, it's not the schnapps, it's a shahakal. It's saying, Rabbeinu Shalom, my life is in your hands, Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam, shahakal niya b'dvarei, it's all yours. No, it's all yours, so why do you drink schnapps for? You could drink tea. Yid that makes a shahakal that way, he deserves a glass of schnapps. That's what they say in Islam. It says, the Gemara says in Schachter Megillah, that Rabbi Yossi says, Kol yom all my days I was mitzdayer on this pasuk. The pasuk says, Vayem mashmesh batzarayim kash yemashmesh ha'ivra b'yafela. The guy you'll walk around, it's part of the teichecha. During broad daylight, like a blind person walks around in darkness. He says, what do you mean a blind person walks around in darkness? What difference does it make for the blind person whether it's dark or not? It's irrelevant. So he said, until a story happened, that he met a person, and the person, there was a blind person walking with a torch. So he went over to him, he said, B'ni, my dear son, avuka zu lamalach. What do you need the torch for? You're sightless anyway, Rahman al-Itzlan. So he said, no, I hold the torch so others should see me, and others can come and help me. You know, we view this world as if how we control. If I don't have anything, I can't control. Hey, we're in this world to give and to take. We're in this world sometimes to be able to be mechazik others, and sometimes to be the recipients. If our understanding of this world is we're not necessarily holding the torch to see, we're holding the torch so others can deal with us. We look at whole life differently. You know, somebody once said he went in looking for a hearing aid. So how much does that hearing aid cost? $3,000, computerized. How much is this hearing aid? $1.29. $1.29? Yeah, it's plastic. Plastic hearing aid? He says, it helps you hear better? Sure. So it's a piece of plastic. You put it on your ear. How does it help you hear better? Because people see you with it. They talk louder. You know, we view this world as we're here. Things happen into our life. Why is this happening to me? It may not be you. Because you have to be a recipient of chesed for someone else. You have to interact with someone else. We don't know that Hashem arranges our itinerary. It's a famous vart. The Satmar Rebbe, somebody once argued with him and said, you know, Chassidim, boys and girls always play separately. He says, I have a raya from a Gemara, not like that. The little boys and girls should play together. What's your raya? Gemara says in Yevamah stuff, Kuf Yud Gimel, that one of the Amoraim, he lost his key to the base of Medrash. So the shaila was, can you ask the kids to bring it in, to go look for it? Shaila kat nachal nevelis bezin mitzuvah lafrishay. So the Gemara says, the Gemara gives an eitzah. Let the little boys and girls play together. And as the little boys and girls play together, they'll send them to play over there. They shouldn't look for the key. They'll find the key. They'll bring it in. So he said to the Satmar Rebbe, you see it in Farish Gemara. Little boys and girls play together. He goes, no, you don't understand. When the girls came to play, all the boys look down. They look down. They'll see the keys. That's what the Gemara says. Right? Sichas chulin shal tamid chacham and tzrichen limud. And just make jokes. Our nesyonos direct us. You walk on the street and you don't look at something you shouldn't be looking at. You turn away. It's an opportunity of bracha. It directs us. Brings us to the right places. Pasuk says, Ishaki says, Riya v'yolda zacher. Right? The Medrash Darshans, Acher v'kedem tzartani. You created us afterwards and before. Why was a person created on Erev Shabbos? Im zacher v'zaycha at the gedam to l'chol masa b'reshus. You're before all other animals. V'im lab, if you're not zaycha, yitash kadmach. Even the little yitash comes before you. If you remember good old Titus, he's the one who was Machar of the Beis HaMikdash. So he says, God, I destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. He's on the boat. The boat starts sinking. He says, I see your whole power is only on the boat. Fight me on land. Hashem says, fight you on land? The smallest little gnat, the smallest little fly will take care of you. The Yitash comes. So the Gemara says the Yitash is so, it banged in Titus's head till he died. Went into his nose. The Gemara says the Yitash is so small that it takes in and it doesn't give out. It doesn't have to excrete anything. So he says that's Titus, that's a molek, the Ber Moshe says in the Urshava Rebbe. It takes in, but it doesn't give out. Titus, you think you destroyed the Beis HaMikdash? God has a cheshbon over here. This pain, they have to go through this frustration. Everything goes in and out. You think this is the world? It's your power? So Zaysa Torah Sham Moshe, so the Gemara in Yuma also darshans. Zacha, not so like Samchaim. If you Zacha, the Torah is a potion of life. You're not Zacha, the Torah is a potion of death. Rav Shimon once said to a Bacher, he said, who was depressed, he said, by Hagba, stare at the Sefer Torah. It's Mashpia Kiddush. You see your letter in the Sefer Torah and you will understand you're here for a purpose between other letters. You give and you take. The Ramban says, cursed is the one who doesn't uphold the Torah, refers to someone who doesn't go hagba long enough, big enough to show people where it is. Because the Inyan is, I'm showing people. This is my equation. It's a big skula by Kriyas HaTorah. The Zohar says every week is crowned with that parsha. You start Isha Ki Tazria, you hear it, you say, this is the birth of man. I don't know why I was created on this world. Help me understand why I was created. And you know something? I have so many worries over the next year. Carry me to the next year, Isha Ki Tazria, till I hear it again. If you told me now, if God came to us and said, by next year when you'll be reading Isha Ki Tazria, you're going to be fine. That's it. Isn't that all the menuchas and nefesh? So you know what the story is for next year. Rabbi Hashem, I put myself into your hands. I heard from my Meshgiach L'Zayin an amazing thing. Look at all the parshiyos that are two parshiyos together. A Balkaira's dream, right? Vayakol Pekudei, Achri Kedoshim, Tazria Metzora, right? Bahar B'chakaisei, Chukas Balak, Matas Masai. They all come out during weeks that you have to be Mesakim and Adam L'Chaveira. Vayakol Pekudei is before Purim. That's when it was Lech Knoises Kala Yehudim. You have to get all the Jews together. Achri Kedoshim, Tazria Metzora, Bahar B'chakaisei all come out during the Yemei HaSfira, because that's when Talmidei Rebbe Kiva went out Noy Kavod Zeh B'Zeh. Chukas Balak and Matas Masai come out in the summer, where it's als the Beis Hamish was destroyed because of Sinas China. It's the Gemara says a different cheshbon. There was really one that had to be broken up into two, because when you read the parashiyos, it's a connection to our life. By listening to Kriyas HaTorah, you are connecting. Rabbi Hashem, give me my purpose. Let me understand the winds in my life are blowing me in the right direction. Particularly, he says this year Tazria Metzora. Why? Why are we reading Tazria Metzora together this year? In Eretz Yisrael, they are not reading Tazria Metzora together, I believe. Why not? Does anyone know why? Because they're a week ahead of us. Why are they a week ahead of us? Because Achar Shel Pesach was after Pesach. So we are catching up to them. This means that in this week of Tazria Metzora, in the Kriyas HaTorah, there is a power where we are catching up to Eretz Yisrael. We are connecting to who they are. I want to tell you, Rabbi Sai, today is the yard side of Shaila Kerestira. Now, many of you may have seen, I once got so upset. I once said it to my class, said, oh no, he's the mice Rabbi, right? Because there's a skula to hang up a picture of Shaila Kerestira when there's mice. So I said, no, he's not the Rebbe of mice, okay? But let me explain to you a little bit who this tzaddik was, not that we have a musig in this. He was nifter in Taf Reish Pei Hey, I think, 1925. He was an Ish Kaddish, and I have heard from many people that, Ish Mipi Ish, moifsim from him in a way, and particularly when it came to Yidden that were having trouble and libels were said against them and so on. And he used to say the mice are they're in his control. And often there were blood libels, different things and documents and contracts that were forged against people, and he would say, I'll send my mice, and they would take care of the contracts. This was worked much more efficiently than a virus that you can send to someone's computer. So let's try to understand this a little bit. So I heard this story from an Einik called Reb Shaila Kerestira. Reb Shaila incidentally used to walk around Matzah Shabbos, and he would shecht a cow every Matzah Shabbos to have fresh meat from Malav Malka. He would say, everyone is oisik, shalashu this time, in Razin, the secrets of secrets. He's oisik in l'soiva v'leila Razin, feeding people. That's his, there's a tremendous Talmud Chacham, but he kept everything quiet. He made himself a big Amaretz. There's a famous tshuva from the Divrei Chaim that the transition of a Rebbe from one generation to the other does not necessarily belong to blood relatives. And that was the Negei of Shaila Kerestira. But anyway, I want to tell you this story that I heard from an Einikol of his. He says there was a man who was broken. He said that they had trumped up charges against him, and he was in such sorrows that Shein Kamoy. And he came to Reb Shaila. He said, Reb Shaila, help me. They're not even going to look into my case. If they would look into my case, they'll see I'm innocent. So Reb Shaila took out his tzitzis. And he said, you know anything about electricity? And he wanted to say, as much as I know about tzitzis, like, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? So Shaila said, electricity was just a new thing that not everyone had it, only in the big towns. So Shaila told him, if a wire is like this and a wire is like that, that's a short circuit. But if you go like this, electricity will flow again. He's looking at Reb Shaila, didn't look like the type that was an electronic technician, and he never even heard of electricity. And he says, well, my court case. He says, go to Budapest. So he goes to Budapest. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. He said, this man is insane. I'm going home. I'm going home and I'm going to accept my lot. As he's about to go home, it's night. He hears this guy screaming from the window, "Ha, come here!" And he comes running. The guy comes running out of the building. He goes, you know anything about electricity? It's a real fancy house. He goes, I know about tzitzis. You know what? Come here. He takes him to some kind of fuse box. He says, I'm so embarrassed. From the first houses here in Hungary that has electricity, showing off all my chashuva guests. In the middle of the Suda, in the middle of the party, boom, the lights are out. I don't know what to do. So he looks, he opens, lights a candle. Which was a nest in the fuse box that didn't blow up. They would have made a lot of light. But he starts looking, and sure enough, he sees the wires wrapped up the way they are. So he goes like this and like that, and boom, there's lights. He goes, thank you so much. And sure enough, I tell you the rest of the story. Who's this guy? He's the judge in the case, and he looks very thoroughly into the matzif, and he takes him out. So Shaila used to say, if you really believe that everything is ashgacha, then you will see the whole world is the Rabbeinu Shalom. It's late, but there's a story. There's a Yid that came to America, and a real estate agent sold him a store, and he put all his money, down payments into the store, and the store was big, and he was doing well. It was a suit store, and then somebody opened up across the street, and the guy was a vicious anti-Semite, started undercutting him, and he started harassing his customers, and he was losing everything, and he began to cry. He says, I'm finished. So somebody write to Reb Shaila. Reb Shaila always helps people in these situations. Reb Shaila, listen, Karistir, and you're in Hungary, what does that have to do with me? Write to him. So he writes to him, so he sends him back a letter. He says, if you're maimin the Amunah Shalema, that everything is ashgacha, you don't have to worry, the Rabbeinu Shalom is here. And he says, take the letter and put it on his door. That's all I need. He says, put it on his door and at night and take it off pre-dawn. So he runs at night to put it on, and he runs home, and he takes it off pre-dawn. He doesn't know how it's going to change anything. And all of a sudden, whether it was the next night or at one point, there's boom, here sirens, and they bang on his door. He opens up the door. The police are there. Come with us. What did I do? Don't worry. They come to him. They say that your store just went up in flames, and you have to go make a report. And he comes. He says, it's not his store. It's the other store. So it turns out that this guy hired a bunch of arsonists to come burn down the Jewish store. So they came and they saw Jewish letters on this store. This is the store, right? So that's what they did. And, so I want to tell you this one last thing, which I've said many times. We'll wrap it up with this. That there was a Yid who wasn't feeling well. And he came to Reb Shaila. And Reb Shaila said, I'm not feeling well. I have a stomach disorder. What's going to be? So Reb Shaila said, Yeshem Shabbos. Kashrus. Shem Shabbos, Kashrus, and daven and put on tefillin. You got a deal. He has no choice. He's desperate. Okay, Rebbe, what do I do now? He says, drink a black coffee. Black coffee is the worst thing for this. He comes home, he drinks the black coffee. Presto, he's better. He has a neighbor of his that's sick with the same disease. So why do I got to go to Reb Shaila? I got Shabbos, Kashrus. I know where to get black coffee. He drinks the black coffee, boom, collapses. Take him to the hospital. They say, black coffee is the worst thing in the world for this. We can't even help you. For Nebuch, on a wagon, half dead, they beg him, they take him to Reb Shaila. They wheel him in on a stretcher. Reb Shaila says, what'd you do? I drank black coffee. You committed suicide. You don't know black coffee is the worst thing in the world for this. He goes, what did I do? He says, Kashrus? Yeah. Shabbos? Yeah. Tefillin? Yeah. Rebbe, what should I do? Go drink a black coffee. No. It is the same wind. It is the same coffee. It's the same cost basis. It's the same bank. It's the same Agmas Nefesh. If we learn how to look at it right, it all becomes Hashgacha. It all becomes a Likus. It all becomes the source of our Yeshua.